All right, welcome back, guys. I'm out here in the Krusty Krab, the talk of the town out here, Bikini Bottom. Just it was a wild weekend of NBA games, and just wanted to be here to see what the people were thinking about. But how about you, Franklin? How are you doing?
Doing good. I am so excited for this NBA playoff season. Not only because of the play-in. I think we got the most exciting play-in matchups you could probably ask for. But this playoffs is just going to be wild. I'm so excited.
Oh my, yes, exactly. And I mean, it sucks that your favorite team's in the playing game, but also for the rest of us, it's awesome that we get to see like LeBron Curry right off the bat. Anyways, but
Right.
yeah, this was something. We saw a bunch of tanking at the end, teams trying to lose to jockey for positions, Clippers, which that I have a lot of thoughts on that. So this, I guess, everyone else who's watching basketball kind of has that thought, like why, if you care so much about being the Lakers, but also beyond that, just there's so many dynamics that are going on, and first round matchup, for example, first round, you're already going to get the rematch of Milwaukee, Miami, which is, you know, that's going to be some PTSD for Giannis and company. And then, we don't know. Boston's been sliding, Washington's been going up. Like there's a lot going on, and I think I'm definitely super excited for this playoffs, more than I have in past years, just because I genuinely believe anything can happen this time.
Yeah.
Like it's anything can happen. I know most people might not to preview ahead of it, but I think most people might just chalk it up to Lakers Nets, and I think it's very dangerous for people to do that. So
Yeah.
I think for you guys, the best way we're going to do this is just go game by game, East and then West, and then basically that way we kind of give our preview for the series while also giving you our predictions, and then it'll eventually work up to who we think is going to win it all. So,
Perfect.
all right, I guess we'll start off with the play-in games.
Yeah.
Super excited for this format. Of course, starts tomorrow, and first game we got is Indiana, Charlotte, or Charlotte at Indiana. Um, give me your thoughts, man, and I'll give you mine.
Yeah. Well, I'll say there's one name that really comes up, maybe two. You could say like I know Lamelo Ball's like he's a household name in
Yeah,
Sports Center and ESPN. They love him, and rightfully he gets that credit. He's been great. Definitely rookie of the year candidate. You could argue he is rookie of the year, but some also many people say Anthony Edwards should be the rookie of the year. But the name I like really focus on is Domantas Sabonis in this
yeah,
matchup. Why? He has been, I think, probably the one of two most dominant players over the last 2 weeks. Absolutely insane. So he was injured a little bit a while ago with like back tightness, but coming back, he's just been doing triple doubles. He's been absolutely
yep,
carrying Indiana. It's just been like a unbelievably he's been performing at a high level. So when you look at this and how the Charlotte Hornets are matched up against Indiana, I don't think, in my opinion, that the Hornets have a very good chance. Like they do have a puncher's chance, you could say, to beat Indiana, but I think Indiana should be favored and should be winning this game. Charlotte's don't have Gordon Hayward either, which is
yeah,
still a really important piece to them to winning this. So I pick Indiana here.
same boat. Uh, you said it pretty much all. I think, so yeah, so when Sabonis has come back, you can see the market difference with the Pacers.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
Without Sabonis and with Sabonis, you can see just the winning splits and just the overall just nature of the team. You can just see that change. And yeah, they don't have, and Charlotte, on the other hand, doesn't have Hayward. So you're looking at this team, the Charlotte team, like, I don't know like how much like Hayward would be like a good guy to have on your like although it might be one game, like in these crucial situations, this is a very young roster that hasn't really seen this situation before.
Right.
And it would be nice to have Hayward on the court in this case. And unfortunately, he's not going to be there. In that case, I think it's just Sabonis and company just going to eat it up. I could see, they have that whole rotation of Brogdon and Levert and McConnell. And I think that could mess them up. I think that could mess up the back, like LaMelo up a little bit, especially McConnell. But I know he doesn't necessarily play. He plays on the, plays bench role and stuff like that. But I think they'll find a way. I think the Pacers will win this.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to sum it all up.
For sure.
And then the next game, and so the Pacers will win that game, leading them to either get the 8th seed versus the loser of this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Boston, Washington. So my favorite team. All right, I'm gonna go first because
I have the floor. Go ahead.
I don't care if Beal's not 100%. Boston losing this game. I don't see any other way that this Boston's just gonna lose this game. I have this opinion, but I think it's best that I just defer to Bill Simmons, who had the same opinion, and I think he just articulated it. So, I mean, he kind of summed it up after Sunday night's games or Sunday's games. This Boston team is just not tough. I feel like this whole team, they're there offensively. Marcus Smart isn't as good as much as I love him, man. He's not that good defensively this year as he has been. That whole team, it's just not connecting. Jaylen Brown being hurt sucks. I just don't see this team being like, we're going to win this game and then we'd have to win a series against. I just don't know if they can really. It just feels like this isn't the team that has those bunch of dogs that I'm accustomed to as a Celtics fan, thinking about how Brad Stevens coaches, but this team is just not it. They've been just faltering at the end, and the way the Wizards have been rising. I mean, I don't care if Beal's not 100%. I mean, Gafford alone is going to heat us up in the middle. And of course, Westbrook's going to will that team. He might make some costly mistakes at the end, how he does sometimes, like some turnovers, but I just don't see this team matching that mentality that Westbrook and the Wizards are going to bring. They're so hot right now that the Wizards going to win this. I just think the Wizards going to win this, just straight up.
Yeah, okay, so I agree. I would say when I think about this, like, yeah, the Celtics, I'm thinking like if there's any chance that, Jaylen Brown went down, Celtics want to like rally around him and see if like they can push out like a game for him. Like I remember it's like college basketball, they do this sometimes. Like I remember Auburn a few years ago when one of their key players went down. Their team rallied around him and like they pushed all the way to the Final Four. But in the NBA, it's a little bit harder for that to happen. I mean, like when you have one or two key players on your team go down, like Jaylen Brown, becomes like a huge issue, matchup wise, just to keep up and stuff like that. And you said it perfectly. The Wizards have been so hot. Any of their losses in the past like month or so have been less than 10 points, every single like loss. And they've been basically winning everything else. Yeah, Westbrook's just been on another level. So yeah, unfortunately, I know as a Celtics fan, this hurts, but I think the Wizards are winning this.
Yeah. And yeah, for sure. I think the Wizards are winning this. It definitely does suck, but I think this team's just got to take a hard look at itself, and it's just not. I don't know what happened defensively. Like this is Brad Stevens is known like have good defensive teams, and the Celtics have been good defensively in recent years, and then this year you have this explosion. Everyone's getting better on off. Kemba's getting, he's rounding into form. I think it just sucks that Jaylen Brown got injured. Of course, injuries happen. It just sucks. But even then, like before that, it's just defensively was so bad. Bill Simmons talked about this too, and I kind of agree with him. There's something to be said about a team that always gets down by like 10 points, 20 points at the beginning of games. Like, what is the deal with this? Like, why? It's just the slow starts, and I don't know if you're going to be able to say, "Oh, we're fixing that because it's the playoffs now," because this team hasn't shown it throughout the year. Like, it's been infuriating to watch them as a fan. It always ends. It's always becomes close games at the end because like Tatum will do something to rally, but then it does it really ever pan out to like, I mean, consistent wins? No. And it's not like they've really rectified this. And I think that's just going to continue. And they're just, I mean, Gafford's really shown up for, I mean, huge fan of him for the Wizards. And then beyond that, like Westbrook's on a roll. He's showing something. Even if Bradley Beal's not 100%, he can still do something against a semi-mediocre like Celtics defense right now. Yeah, bottom line. Yeah, I guess that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then that brings us to what we believe will be the game for the 8th seed, the Celtics versus the Pacers. And I thought about this like before we're going to start recording because I had this fanned up and I have really no clue who it's going to be. Do you have a clue, man? Do you have a strong opinion about this?
I don't really have a strong opinion. The only thing I'm looking at, so I wouldn't call the Celtics necessarily a bad team in the clutch. So like in the last few minutes, I think
They're not.
like they're not that bad. Right. I agree with that. But I also saw like the Pacers are not that bad in the clutch either. So, they match up okay on that front. I've looked at a stat. I think this is maybe season long, but anyways, it said like Pacers were number 7, Celtics were number 17, but that doesn't matter at this point. When you look at those two teams and how they match up, see, I like a lot of things about the Celtics. I think I watched the Knicks game on what was that, Sunday against the Celtics, and I was like, well, their reserve really gave the Knicks starters a run of their money, right? And that's a tough team, like that kind of all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm impressed with that. But then again, like I'm thinking, you got the Pacers, and they got like a lot of things they can also throw at you. It's really a toss-up for me. I would like to lean towards Boston a little bit more, but I'm not like very confident in that. That's what I'd say.
So here's where I'm at. The Celtics own the Pacers just always. There might be some psychological thing to that. So that's a point for the Celtics. A knock against the Celtics, though, is what I talked about earlier. Is this team, I just don't. They lost that first game, right? And then they're going to be like, so we win this game to get like to go against Philly and like what happens. I just don't know if this team is that strong enough, and I could see them losing out in that way. And that might just be me as a pessimistic fan. On the other hand, there's a weird situation going on in Indiana with like the almost a hostility between the coach and the players. That is kind of weird. Do they really want to play for him like hard to just get swept or semi-swept by the gentlemen swept by the Sixers? So it comes down to that. I think if you look at Sabonis and that front court could just eat up the Celtics. At the same time, do they really have a matchup for Tatum? I'm not sure. So I think it's a toss up for me. I'll lean Boston here just because I think Boston has the higher ceiling as a better team. And of course, Sabonis is good and all, but like, I just think, there's something to be said. I mean, this might be some weird thing. There's something to be said about the fact that the Celtics own the Pacers. Like they just owned them, and it's so I think that'll just continue in that case.
Sure.
Yeah. So before we, so now let me get my thoughts straight. Jeez. All right. Now, for what I believe are the more compelling playing games
Mhm.
in the West.
The West,
Because
yes,
oh my gosh, this is going to be fun. Uh,
absolutely.
so first we got Memphis and San Antonio. What are you thinking?
Well, I hate to so I will say this. So Greg Popovich, I would agree, is one of, if not the greatest coach in NBA history. I believe he's
Yeah,
been amazing.
he's top 3. I'd say that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely top 3. When I look at this Spurs team, I personally don't like it because I feel like I just don't feel like it fits the modern NBA. There's a lot of things with the Spurs that I don't like. I just feel like they're like in an awkward transition between old players and young guys. They have players going in and out of the lineup the whole year. They lost to Marcus Aldridge, which was supposed to be one of their, I guess, semi quote unquote stars, and then he retired subsequently. But still, I mean, they lost him. And yeah, it's just been like a weird team. And I look at Memphis, it's like, yeah, they're not doing much better, but I think they're at a much better pace at this point of the season because most of their stars are healthy now. They have, Jaren Jackson coming back. It's not a back-to-back game, so he's going to play this game for sure. You got like Valanciunas, he's been playing well. John Morant's like, trying to get the pieces back together and gel a little bit more. So I think in this kind of like do or die scenario, I would like the Grizzlies to win this. It just makes sense for me. But
Same boat, man. You said well. I think Memphis has been quite good. They've been in a lot of games recently. It feels like,
yeah,
especially they gave the marquee game of Sunday, like the Warriors Grizzlies. Curry had to just become a god, like he has in recently, but
yeah,
they barely eked out a win when Curry was that good. So like, I just think this Memphis team is strong enough. I mean, Valanciunas ate him up at the boards. Again, it's a different. You can't. It's apples to oranges. The way, what's it called? What's it? Jesus. Warriors and Spurs are constructed, but I could still. I mean, you got Valanciunas, you got Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks. Although he can mess up at times, will do his thing. Uh, he's
correct.
that. He's
Yeah,
he's in a way that dog. And then John Morant is John Morant. What do I gotta say? So I think, yeah, for sure. I just don't know how well constructed this team is, especially I'm just not a big DeRozan fan. We talked about this off air. I'm just not a big DeRozan fan. I just
yeah.
don't know how that's gonna hold up. Uh, and I just don't think it will really pan out for them. Sorry, Pop, but I think the Grizzlies win this one too.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. And then on to
We're
Lakers
circled.
Warriors.
Yeah,
The, the overall red circle. I'm making my whole family watch this game with me. I'm like, we're watching this, and then
yeah.
but they're like, hell yeah, we're watching this game because like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be so fun.
I'm getting my buddies together Wednesday night to watch this game. Like, this is the one game I want to watch. Oh my god, it's gonna be amazing. I'm sure.
Yeah, for all that hype though, I'll be honest. Actually, no, wait. Let me take this through. So let me start off. So I was gonna say, I'm gonna be honest. I think it's the Lakers, and they're gonna win by a solid amount.
Oh,
But
I'm not sure about that.
that LeBron injury at the end, although they're like he's fine, he'll be fine for the Warriors. That there is something to it. Like I there has to be some lingering, not 100%. I mean, he said in that press conference, I might not be ever 100%, but he might even be more not 100% after that injury, like that re-injury, or I shouldn't say re-injury, but re-aggravation. That's the word. Re-aggravation of the ankle. And I mean, they're atrocious on offense without him at full capacity, and so that leaves it to the fact that leaves it to, well, you got like the Warriors small ball. They're just embracing this small ball lineup where it's just like Draymond facilitates to Curry, who just runs, just out of nowhere just to shoot random places. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So you got that small ball against, I guess, in a way, a big ball lineup in the Lakers, and how they might just put out Drummond, and they might put out Drummond and Davis, and a LeBron and all that. So it's going to be competing styles. We'll see what happens. I still lean Lakers, just because. I mean, I don't want to. I want the Warriors to win, of course, but because I also think the Warriors would have a better chance against the Suns than the Jazz. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Lakers. But I think on further, what's it called? Not introspection, on further analysis, I think this game is going to be much closer than people might think it would be.
So I think you said it pretty well. I think Lakers will win. So I'll put it out there right now. But I'm thinking that this game, as I'm hyping it up so much, is because it will be very close. Like I don't see many scenarios where it wouldn't be very close. I don't think LeBron is 100%. I don't think he will be 100%. As a Lakers fan, that sucks a lot. Of course, I want him to be as well as possible, but high ankle sprain, and he keeps on freaking tweaking it, and just like it, keep on multiplying the amount of damage to that ankle. It's just like, oh my God, what are you going to do at this point? And Anthony Davis, I mean, I love the man, but he's so injury prone. Like, I think like Bill Simmons just talked today, just like, ankle, wrist, like sprains, like over unders, like 2 a game, something like that. It's just unbelievable how many he gets.
How many times this man grabs his knee? Yeah.
Yeah, basically. So it's like, it's bound to happen. Like, it's inevitable, unfortunately. So, and then the third element, of course, is Steph Curry. And when you look at it, it's like how good the Warriors have been. They've been like just on fire. They've been crazy good, all because of one man, Steph Curry, being like the crazy MVP, back-to-back MVP. All the superstar, like all the hype that he gets is deserved because that's how good he is. I think, I think the Warriors, like, they would be in a so much worse position without Steph Curry, and like that's why he single-handedly carried them to this spot, basically. So what I'm basically saying is, I don't think, as well as the Lakers can do, they will be able to fully stop Steph Curry. So Steph Curry's going to get his, and then the Lakers will, try and match that with Anthony Davis and LeBron. And it's going to be a very close game because I feel like, the health of, the Lakers superstars aren't as good. So there will be some stretches where they aren't as clicking with good chemistry as, I would like them to be. So the only factor I would say is, one, the Warriors rotation, the rest of their rotation, outside of maybe Andrew Wiggins, who went off for 1 game. It's a little bit lacking. But then number 2, I think the Lakers' size. So I've heard that a lot too. That would be something that can really shut down the Warriors a little bit. So I'd pick
that's my thing. I think it's the big ball versus small ball, but I mean, Anthony Davis, the way he plays, I mean, although like you've said, we've talked about, over under like 2 knee grabs a game, but like it's the way he moves, he can almost play like a small ball, like 5 in a way. I mean, he'll play to 4, but he can play. He's so fluid and amazing. I mean, he's unbelievable that he can work out. Although I don't know how great he hasn't been as great as he was pre-injury, of course.
right.
And then again, I guess I mean the Lakers have the number 1 defense in the NBA. Like, it's as much as like the Sixers have a lot of defensive player of the year candidates, and they're also great defensively. The Lakers have been the best team, I guess, from almost the get-go defensively, in the association. So I just think when you have one guy in Steph, and although you can say if you do a lot of double teaming and quadruple teaming on Steph Curry, then others will be open and they can score too in a way. I just don't but I just think defensively and their size is going to bother Golden State. And I think Curry's going to go off. I do actually think Curry's going to go off because something's inside of is going to be like it's against LeBron. Like LeBron is going to pull up the best game he can out of himself. Curry's going to pull the best game out of himself, but LeBron at least has AD and Drummond and all these other guys. And as much as I love Draymond, this isn't necessarily the same Draymond. And then, Wiggins, we can't really depend on Wiggins, you know, when predicting this. So yeah, I think Lakers.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the 8th seeded game, Warriors versus Grizzlies. I got Warriors in this. What about you?
Yeah, okay, this one's really interesting. I think it might be a little bit recency bias because of how good Memphis played the Warriors, but I think looking at larger scale, Golden State just like I feel like they'll win. I think that it's just like another one of those teams that Steph Curry would be like, okay, well I'll go off, and even if I don't go off, I think we'll have a better night than what we did on Sunday because like I think that was almost as good of a game plan execution as you could probably imagine for the Grizzlies. So yeah, I'd take the Warriors too.
The Warriors also been insanely hot recently, like quite recent. Of course, there was that streak in April, like Curry had, but they've been quite good as of late. And so they won, I believe it was 6 in a row, heading in, so 7 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So that's there. Plus, I think experience in a way matters in that elimination. It's an elimination game at that point, the 8 seed game.
Correct.
And yes, the Grizzlies, they're young, they're super talented. I guess Valanciunas has some experience, but it's what am I trying to say? Is Curry, I think, is just going to go off. I think the lights are bright, and I think that he's going to do. He might not do better than 46 points, but you're gonna see him play like really lights out. I just think he'll stay hot, and if he doesn't stay hot, of course, then they're in trouble, the Warriors. But I think he'll stay hot, and I think they'll win that game and take the 8 seed.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree with that.
All right, so trying to think of the best way to do this. I guess we can just do 1, 2, 3, 4 on the East, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 on the West, and then just go from first round to conference semis to conference finals to finals. Going back and forth. So, awesome. Kind of a March Madness type way of previewing this. All right.
I like it.
So based on, I think we both have Boston. We lean Boston beating Indiana. So Philly versus Boston. Now, I'll start first because Celtics fan here.
Sure.
We have kind of owned Philly in the past, and in a way. And there might be some psychological thing to it, but on the flip side, I just think this Philly team I think it's going to be a sweep or a gentleman sweep, leaning towards just full sweep. I think there's going to be no answer to Celtics have for Embiid, like absolutely none. He's just going to devour us. And then you got Matisse Thybulle and Ben Simmons, who are great wing defenders. And I think they could lock up Jason Tatum in a way. And if you don't have that, if you play this ISO heavy, style that the Celtics have been doing, if Tatum's going to be locked up and you can't pass it, then what you're going to have Marcus Smart chuck those weird threes that work out in like the fourth quarter, but then just at random times, but then don't at others. Like I just think defensively they're going to lock it down. I think Doc Rivers is going to come with. Doc Rivers was fired before getting this job, right? Daryl Morey can't. I mean, of course he's not playing, but I think there's just something to that organization that wants to prove everyone wrong. I think the way Embiid has been playing is, we've had some arguments about this. I would have said, if he was fully healthy the whole time, I would say like he would be MVP over Jokic. You would say Jokic, and I now say Jokic just because Jokic played all these games, but you got Embiid. Like, it's huge. And then the way Ben Simmons and Tybal are defensively, they're just gonna clamp them down. And I just don't think the Celtics have any shot. Like, zero. Mark it now.
Okay, so what you said basically sums everything up. I would give the Celtics a little bit of, credit and probably say gentleman sweep, but I mean, yeah, something like that. I think the 76ers, I think they're actually basically built to defend the ISO a little bit pretty well. That's why they and people have been saying the Nets could have some problems facing the Sixers. It's because
we'll get to that
pretty well. So yeah, exactly. When you have an ISO team like the Celtics, yeah, it's kind of a problem. So yeah, Phillies, the 76ers, sorry.
But even let's say we're wishy-washy on this, right? Let's say let's say it was the Pacers, because we say like we're leading Boston, but let's say it's the Pacers. Embiid's just gonna. I'm sorry, Sabonis, but Embiid's just that much better than you. And then it'll be a defensive game to hash it out. I think Indiana might have a better chance to win a game than the Celtics do, but I just think I also think that Philly would just sweep or gentleman sweep the Pacers.
Agreed.
Right.
I just think the East is so top heavy. These teams at the top are so much better than the other teams. Like I think you would say the quote unquote bottom, but yeah, so much better than these teams. So
yeah, like the West is. I mean, I think the East is just so much easier to predict than the West. At least I can predict up to like the conference semis or predict the conference finals relatively easily. But whereas the West, it feels like so much things to happen, and we'll get to that later. All right, so we got Philly sweeping or gentlemen sweeping. Then we got the 2 versus the 7. So we got Brooklyn versus the Wizards. Give me your thoughts, man.
Well, I love the Wizards. I will say this. I do love the Wizards. But let's just think about this. Brooklyn, their only concern was health. That was one. And then 2, how well they can gel together and chemistry, all that. Let's just say this. I don't think the health thing is a problem at this point now. They're resting James Harden just for precautionary reasons because the Nets didn't have anything to play for, but they're all healthy now. And I saw enough from James Harden in his last 2 games back that I thought he's fine. So health-wise, I think they're good. Chemistry-wise, I don't think it's been a problem. I think they fit in very well this season, and it's proven that. So with the Nets being at full health and full strength, even how good the Wizards are, and I could give the Wizards a game. I mean, yeah, they've been so high, I can give them a game, but gentlemen sweep. The Nets are just so freaking good. It's just, I hate to say it, but they're moving on without doubt right there.
Like, the only thing is, I don't think Gafford can do enough to because again, Brooklyn's got nothing in the interior. As Blake Griffin, sure. We'll say Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan's been pretty bad. I don't know how Claxton's gonna. I mean, he was quite good at stretches in the regular season, but I don't know how it's gonna play out in playoff time. So, and also, the Wizards are bad on defense. So I don't know how they're gonna stop Brooklyn offensively. Even if Brooklyn's also bad defensively, it's gonna be shootouts, but Brooklyn's gonna be. I mean, it's those 3. Like, what can I say? It is what it is. So absolutely. I think Brooklyn sweep or gentleman sweep. I'm leaning towards sweep just because the chemistry might not gel, but I mean, and there might be an added factor that Westbrook is I want to prove these guys wrong. Like, I want to prove my old teammates wrong, about me, and show them that, they can't just. Quick aside, it's kind of interesting how everyone's been talking up the Nets about we've never seen this much offensive talent on one team. We've never seen this much offensive talent on one team. And I was having a walk today, and I was thinking about this. This is the same trio except sub in Kyrie for Westbrook.
Yeah.
We've seen this in a way before. Of course, Harden wasn't as developed. Uh, Katie was still a beast, and I think you know. But I mean, Westbrook and Kyrie. I mean, in different ways, I think they were at extreme peaks at that point. Like Westbrook dropped like 40 during the finals. That trio was together. Point is, as much as we want to say like this is unprecedented, what's happened in Brooklyn, like this amount of talent, like I mean, to be fair, if you just sub out Westbrook for what's it? Not Westbrook. What sub out Kyrie for Westbrook? The similar team, in fact, like they were better that Oklahoma City team in post. Like I take Ibaka over Blake Griffin now, right? It's or Kendrick Perkins over Blake Griffin now. So it's like, are we? Anyways, that's just a quick aside. I still think this Brooklyn team is. I'm not trying to like shoot down this Brooklyn team's talent. I'm just putting that as an aside, just realizing how much we might have been over. We might be. We're not the media, I guess, yet, but how much the media has been overblowing the Brooklyn's talent. But I still think Brooklyn's going to sweep or gentleman sweep.
Yeah.
To get back to the point. All right. So then 3-6. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I want to watch every game of this series, man. Miami, Milwaukee, three Milwaukee, 3 seed Milwaukee, 6 seed Miami. Well, I'm gonna give my thoughts first, and then I'll let you chip in at the end. But
Sure.
this, I really believe in this Milwaukee team. I think we've talked about this. We're both really high on the Bucks. I mean, other people are high on the Bucks, but I think we're higher on the Bucks than even most people who are that are like, oh, the Bucks are under the radar. It's like we agree, but we think it might be just that good because Drew Holiday changes this team so much. Just having him on that team, the way he's able to just neutralize, have a solid point guard at that point guard and be able to neutralize the other guards has been amazing. And on the flip side, Miami's just worse this year. They're just a worse team than that finals team. Like Hero and Duncan Robinson are just not the same caliber guys. Jimmy Butler's done great, of course, and Bam has gotten even better. But it feels like I don't see a team how like Iguodala playing old. No offense to Iguodala, he's great. He's one of my favorites, but very old Iguodala and Trevor Ariza, who's trying to get significant minutes. I don't know how they're going to beat this team with Chris Middleton, Giannis, Drew Holiday, and then a solid bench, rotation of bench players on Milwaukee. And I don't think it's going to be a sweep just because I think I love Jimmy Butler and I think he'll will himself for like 1 or 2 games, the same way like he did against the Lakers in the finals and throughout the playoffs last year. But Jimmy Butler and Bam are that good. I would say Milwaukee will win in 6. I'll say that. Milwaukee will win in 6.
Okay, this series is going to be, I agree. It's going to be very, very interesting. The Heat recently, how they played, it's been something like, oh my God, like I really don't want to pick against Milwaukee, but like I started to like have doubts, like they were creeping in my mind how well the Heat were playing. But overall, I'm just gonna say I think the Bucks are still gonna win this because when you look on like just like matchup wise, the Bucks have so much more talent. I think they're so much deeper. I think Giannis is just like he's so good. And as well as I guess Bam has been playing. I don't think he's been like peak like last year's playoffs level. So I think Giannis will get his and he's probably going to eat inside. So really it's up to like Jimmy Butler going like crazy, having heroics, which I know he'll do well, but I just think the Bucks definitely know that it's been years 3 now that they've come up short in the playoffs. They know that opposing teams build a wall in front of Giannis, so they limit him. But the Bucks this time, even if they limit Giannis to some extent, they have so many players to kick out to. Got your Drew Holidays, got Chris Middleton's,
Yeah.
PJ Tucker's like, oh my God, it's so deep, and it's like they're all like competent, really good players. I think this team is, again, they're not under the radar anymore because we know how good they are. So yeah, you say Bucks in 6, right? Yeah, I think that sounds about right. That sounds about right, I'd say. Yeah, I agree with that.
And of course, right. I mean, the Heat have been playing good as of late. And I mean, I just think Drew Holiday just it affects that team so much. This is a team that's better than, in my opinion, that's just built better than those. What's it called? The those past 2 years teams that have been the 1 seed, even though they're a lower seed. I think this team is just built better.
Oh, yeah.
I think this team can go farther, and I also think that they're playing with a more sense of urgency. I think Budenholzer. If Milwaukee has so much. If Milwaukee loses this round, if they lose this in this round, they can't look like Giannis will never. His legacy is for like just tarnished, like period. I feel like in a way, because unless he turns out to have like a LeBron-esque career, who knows? But I just think his legacy is just tarnished from that point. The whole franchise is like what these past 3 years they put in everything for like that Drew Holiday trade. I mean, it was seen as a lot, but I think Milwaukee won that trade. But would they have won that trade if they lose in the first round? Like there's so much like Budenholzer, he could get fired. I believe he would get fired if they lose this round, right? It's just so much riding on the line for them, and I think last year was more of it was the bubble, and there was a lot going on with that, and it might just been less urgency in a way. I mean, of course, we always think that these players play 100% urgency, but I think there's going to be something extra that's tapped into with this year, getting some revenge. And of course, it's hard to like out dog or a Pat Riley, Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler team, but I think we're going to try and channel that mentality for this series. It's going to be fun, physical, but I think I just think Milwaukee's just they have too much on the line to lose this. And if they lose this, like, oh my God.
Yeah. I think they went all in this season. One, to convince Giannis for sure, but two, just to, really make a run at this. And yeah, if they fall short again, I agree. I think Budenholzer's really gonna, they're gonna take a serious look at his job.
Yeah, he's gonna get fired. I just don't see anything around that.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So I think so. We both have Milwaukee winning at 6. So we'll have Milwaukee, Brooklyn, preview that after we get through the West. But first, the Knicks and the Hawks. I'm gonna let you talk.
Well, I watched the Knicks game, and one of the things they said was that the Knicks swept the Hawks in regular season. It's 3-0. And, it got me thinking, and it's like, well, on the Hawks on paper, they're actually a pretty talented team when you actually look at them top to bottom. But in some ways, I don't think they work as well together. And maybe the Knicks are just a great matchup against them in some ways too, just like how they limit Trae Young's ability to, just go off. And then kind of like the inside is also pretty well protected. You got Nerlens Noel, who has actually been a really good replacement to Mitchell Robinson, and Julius Randle, of course. So, the bigs are pretty competent, and they can really match up and limit, in some ways, what John Collins and Clint Capella can do. So when I look at this, it is like there is pressure, of course, like New York City, there's a lot of pressure there. Like the New York media, it's like, oh, it's your first time coming back. You got to do something, right? You're the 4 seed and all that. Okay, I would say this would be a pretty close series, but since New York has home court advantage, I would actually like to say, I hope I'm not influenced too much by media, Knicks win in 6. But yeah, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I have the Knicks too. I think it's either Knicks in 5 or Knicks in 7. I just want to see the poetic justice of like winning in front of like in Madison Square Garden
That's fair.
for them. But when in 6 is probably what's going to happen, in my opinion. So Thibodeau, man, he's all right. Actually, blah blah blah. first thing, Trae
Yes.
Young is not going to get those calls. Same way you talk about how James Harden doesn't do well in the playoffs. Trae Young, the same thing is going to happen to him.
Right.
So that's gonna limit a little bit. Two, Thibodeau is gonna find a way to that team doesn't necessarily they're great talented, like you said, their chemistry isn't that great. He's gonna figure out a way to just extract that. And I think there's a reason that the Knicks have been 3-0 against the Hawks this year. But like with that even said, I think Thibodeau is just gonna find a way to just clamp down on defense and find a way to disrupt their somewhat weak chemistry at times. I think those two things, coupled with the fact that I think the way that Randall has been distributing the ball and playmaking and all of that, sure, John Collins and Clint Capella are great post presences, but I just like the Knicks. I think it's just the fact that I think Trae Young is just going to be a lot worse than regular season. The same way Harden is. I shouldn't say a lot, pause, but he'll be perceived as choking in the playoffs because I think what's going to happen to him is what happens to Harden. So I think that's going to play a huge part in it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, we're both like big Thibodeau fans on this pod. And again, you really, really said it perfectly. Trae Young's not going to get his calls there again. So that's going to be a big deal, because he gets a lot of calls. He's one of the guys that gets one of the most calls, I think, in the NBA. So limiting that will kind of hurt the Hawks offense for sure. So, yeah.
All right. So let's head on to the West. So we got the Jazz and the Warriors. I'll just say this right now. With Mitchell, I really love this Jazz team. I think they can. I think it's gonna be. I think Curry will have one hot game, so it might be like a gentleman's sweep, 4-1 with the Jazz. But I could also just see it being a sweep. I think this Jazz team, Curry's got to really, really carry that team on his shoulders, and he has. Like he's scored like insane games, but I just I think this Jazz team, when they're fully healthy, they can get it clicking. That they had their 3-and-D way of playing is awesome. I love 3-and-D, and I think when you have a whole set of players that you can rely on to just get buckets, and the way they're set up chemistry wise, I just think it's a big weakness the Warriors have with having just Curry having to carry them, because in order to be a Jazz team like that, I think they need more role players. Like I shouldn't say more, like better supporting cast for Curry if they want a shot against the Jazz, just because the Jazz are that deep.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the big things about the Jazz and how they have such a advantage when they're the number one seed is that they have home court advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs. And, for those that don't know, Utah is a very hard place to play. I know, like, when it comes to, hard venues to, play at, usually the mind goes to, like, Denver. And, football's like Mile High Stadium and stuff like that. It's because Denver's got that altitude and it's, like, very hard to play at. There aren't a lot of professional sports teams in Utah, so that's why it gets overlooked. But Salt Lake City is a really high elevation city as well. The air's pretty thin. It takes a while to travel over there, like compared to like other places. I guess the Warriors kind of have the guy kind of lucky break. Is not as far, I guess, from San Francisco, but still, I mean, Utah is just a very difficult place to play. They got feisty fans as well. When it comes to this, you just look at it and it's like, oh wow, how good is Utah this year? I didn't like them to get to the finals, obviously, because there are like a few factors that I think they're still missing. But against a team like with a, I guess, singular superstar like Steph Curry, to put it nicely, it's going to be a beating for sure. I would give Steph Curry one game. because they're gonna
Just
play in
have
San
to.
Francisco, right? Yeah, and it's Steph Curry. I will always give him one game, I think. I'll give him that one game. But other than that, I think Utah, how well they've done this year, how well they've clicked, how well everything they've executed, they'll win in 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think I could talk about this Jazz team, but the way Joe Ingles is like great 6th man and how Jordan Clarkson can just find a way to get a bucket. But with Mitchell back, I think it's just gonna even open up more having Ingles and just it's gonna leave either Ingles or Bogdanovich just open for these corner threes and like it's that whole team just get gels like it's gonna work out I think, but we'll see. Now on to I guess what would be in my opinion the most anticipated game of the first round.
Oh,
First, the series. Oh my gosh, man, it's getting late. The most anticipated series of the first round.
yes.
The Suns, the 2 seed, Lakers at the 7 seed. Give me your thoughts, man. Give me your thoughts, because man, this is gonna be interesting.
This is going to be really, really interesting. I would say when you have the Lakers and you're like, okay, would you rather play the Suns or would you rather play the Jazz? And both are really good teams, of course. I can't understand that, but I think the Lakers would probably actually like to play the Suns.
Yep.
Yeah, it just like makes me feel like they can read the Suns a little better. They have a little bit better of a matchup wise understanding of what the Suns do. I don't think Talking Stick Arena and Phoenix is as much of an intimidating environment as Utah would be. And just overall, I've seen a little bit also of the track record of the Lakers, like going against the Suns. That I guess it's also recency bias, but just Anthony Davis himself and Lakers basically without LeBron and Dennis Schroeder winning against the Suns, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed by that game, and it showed me and gave me encouragement that the Lakers would do fine and would like to play the Suns in some ways. Again, I think one of the advantages the Lakers have is that they have a really good bigs. They have good bigs, and I think as well as Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, their connection has been this season. Like in some ways, the Lakers bigs are just so good that they can really like defend that. And that's like a key part of how the Suns operate. It's Chris Paul to DeAndre Ayton, and then Devin Booker and Chris Paul. That is also part of it. But if you limit one half of the equation, you can shut down the other half, and it just becomes like much more difficult for the Suns to continue on. And then again, the length for the Lakers. They have probably the most length of like almost most teams in the NBA. Maybe like you got like the Bucks. Maybe you could say something like the Nets. Again, their bigs aren't that big, so I wouldn't.
Well,
say
the Sixers. I mean, Sixers. Their length is and
Right. I forgot. Sorry, Sixers fans. The Sixers, of course, they got a lot of length. But yeah, the Lakers are in the Western Conference for sure. They're like one of the top teams for length, so they got that advantage. So if I'm picking how many games, well, the Suns are a 2 seed, right? So it's like you got to give them some credit. So I think the Lakers would win in 6. That's probably my estimation. But yeah, how are you?
So as I'm thinking about this game, this series. My gosh, it's gonna be a series.
Serious.
Yeah. As I'm thinking about it, I think the Lakers, like you talked about, match up well. It's just how much, damn it, does Chris Paul want it? Like, god damn it, like this guy, he's gonna be like, I mean, which I think he's gonna lose in the first round, but I think he's gonna make it interesting because I think he's just gonna come with some extreme fire, be like, all they've been talking about, like my legacy is like, oh, I'm a point guard and like I should get MVP maybe, when they don't talk about Jokic, people are trying to bring up Chris Paul. It's like everyone talking about how he makes every team better. It's like, the way they've kind of doubted him in recent, like, oh, he's gotten too old. Like at some point, he's got to drop off. Like I think all that's going to like come into play, and they're going to be underdogs, and I'm just I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I can't tell. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like Chris Paul is going to pull up something new or not something new, but he's going to come with some energy and it's going to manifest in some way that I can't really tell you. Maybe because you're right. I think DeAndre Ayton, he's going to get suffocated. Like poor guy, like no one's going to help you.
Yeah.
And I think you're just going to rely on, is it just going to be, like you said, it gets easier if you can shut that connection down to then defend Booker and Paul. But
Right.
It comes down to Booker and Paul, like the front court of the Suns versus like not front court. My gosh, the back court of the Suns versus the front court of the Lakers. In that way, I just think, I mean, for what all you said, I agree. I think the Lakers win this. My head says 5, but my heart or my gut say like 6 or 7. Just because I just don't want to count out Chris Paul. Like I just think there's the same way you would think about the Rockets, although the Rockets last year weren't maybe as talented as this year's Lakers, but the Rockets and that OKC team, and you're thinking, oh, that should be like a sweep or a gentleman's sweep, and how Chris Paul is able to bring that to 7. I think in a similar way, you can see something like that here. Although, like on paper, this looks like Lakers should have a really good matchup. And also, Phoenix hasn't been that great recently. Defensively, they haven't since the All-Star break been that great, as their overall numbers will tell you.
Right.
So that this long rambling way of saying, I agree with you and with Lakers in 6, Lakers in 5, even my head. But I think it's, I can't tell you why, but I just think Chris Paul, something's going to happen and it's going to be a really close series.
Yeah, I only thing I would say is I think the Lakers to close out, they'd have to close out in the Staples. I think personally, so they'd have to make it Game 6 because winning in Phoenix is, although easier to win in Utah, is still a very tough place to win. So I lean towards 6. So.
All right, we'll see, man. And leads us to Denver, Portland. For me, this has been one of the harder ones to analyze and predict. Give me your thoughts on it.
Well, Denver, Portland. I heard it was like a matchup of 2 years ago when they faced off each other in the playoffs. So,
Conference semis, yeah.
A little bit of deja vu right here. Again, when you look at Denver, it's been really interesting. Since they lost Jamal Murray, which is just a little bit after All-Star break, the Nuggets after All-Star break have the best record in the NBA. Like that's like just an unbelievable stat. That's been something that I hadn't expected at all. Solidified Jokic's MVP run, of course. So when it comes to what Portland has done, I really like how they've like come together a little bit. How you got like Nurkic and Cantor as a big rotation, and when you think about it, I think they can kind of stop. I don't think they can stop Jokic, but they can kind of be like a 2-guy rotation to kind of limit what Jokic does. However, when you look at, let's see, so Denver has the home court advantage, right?
Yes.
Which I think is important, because Denver is one of the hardest places to play. That's undisputed. The altitude there, and just like playing in at Nuggets Pepsi Arena, it's just tough. See, this is what I'm trying to think about who would win this.
It's hard, man.
because you got Jokic on one side, but then you got Lillard and McCollum on the other side.
My gosh, yeah.
That's a lot. Okay. let me make the game prediction first. I think it's gonna go at least 6. It's gonna probably go 7. I'd lean towards 7, and then I'd probably put. If it went 7, I'd probably put Portland. If it went 6, I'd put Denver. So I choose 7 Portland. That's what I'm choosing.
Whoa. Okay. So I think I'm just gonna chalk this up to when I look at defensive metrics. Denver's just better than Portland. I think Portland's
Yeah.
defense is quite bad. So I don't know. Yes, I think like you talk about the front court. Portland could try and find a way to bother Jokic in a way.
Would say, yeah.
Bother. I don't know if he can neutralize it all.
No.
But and I mean Kevin wrong Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. Is getting really hot. In my opinion, it should be up there for most improved player. To Randall and him. But that guy, they got that in a way. But like Lillard and McCollum, it's oh my gosh, like how are you gonna defend that front that backcourt? How are you gonna Norman Powell? They I think their bench is quite weak for Portland. It is quite weak for Portland.
That's
but
true.
Their starters, like what they've done, Portland's kind of gone hot, you might say, recently. And they've gotten hot by just playing their starters, just full out, kind of exhausting them in a way. That comes into, I think Portland might be the better team, which is weird to say because on paper, I think they're a better team. And you just look at the starters, like how talented they are, like that starting 5 crew.
Right.
But I think at some point, these people are humans. Like at some point, it's going to fizzle out, and they're going to get so exasperated that they're going to lose a couple of games just because the way Jokic is able to elevate and make just the bench so much better for not bench, but these rotation players so much better for Denver. My gosh, like I keep going back and forth on this. Like I think it's going to go to 7 or 6. I can't decide who. Period. You say Portland. I might side with that. I might just, based on just defense alone, just side with Denver, just because offense. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. I think offensive metrics, I believe they're similar efficiency rating.
That's probably true.
Denver's 4th, Portland's 2nd. But then defensively, Denver's 12th, and Portland is 2nd to last. So I think just by that, I might just say Denver in 7. But I can't really predict what's going to happen. This has been the hardest one for me to wrap.
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest one. I think the only thing I'd say, and I agree with a lot of your points. I think the only point I'd say is in the playoffs, I know starters get tired and all that, but I think in trends have been that coaches have shortened their rotation somewhat in the playoffs. So they're only playing the players they know they can rely on. So, a very deep bench, yes, it does help, but in the playoffs, again, how much of that bench is really going to be utilized the entire, like all the time? Yeah, maybe like a little bit, and that could become like crucial, but in most cases, it's going to be a pretty short rotation, just like a few bench players that you're going to really utilize because it really matters now. So, yeah, Portland does have a weak bench, but they're not going to like go way deep to reach into their bench. So that's why it kind of like, balances out, I'd say, per se, a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't like my pick, like, because I just don't know which way it's going to go, but I'm just going to have to go with it. So I'll say Portland in 7, but I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I'm probably rooting for Denver to win. So, yeah.
Darren might say it's just because it'll be an easier matchup for the Lakers, but
maybe.
So, anyways, but then the 4-5 game, Clippers Mavericks. There's been a history of this. The Clippers just own the Mavericks. I think the Clippers just win this. Karma's going to get to the Clippers somehow, though. Karma's are going to get to Clippers. The way they're just dodging the Lakers is just Karma's going to get to them, because teams that like lose and like try and do this for seeding because they believe the matchups are going to be easier, like it doesn't work out. Like it just doesn't. It never really does. It works out how you planned it. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll beat the Mavs. Like,
I'll just preface this. So, I respect the Clippers. Even as a Lakers fan, I don't like them. They're probably my least favorite team in professional sports because I am a very big basketball fan. Right?
wow.
Lakers are probably my favorite team in professional sports. I mean, it kind of balances out. But anyways, Clippers, I mean, if you really wanted to play the Lakers, I would have thought you would want to play them in the first round. They aren't totally healthy. Chemistry's not clicking. Again, another point is fans won't be totally back, because we all know LA is a Lakers town, and to have less fans in Staples is an advantage for you, Clippers fans. And it's just like the Clippers are like, oh, we're just gonna lose against Oklahoma City, we're going to lose against Houston just to avoid the Lakers. I mean, yeah, sure, you can hope the Lakers, like, I think their strategy is, oh, the Lakers are going to lose before we ever get to see them. Which, I mean, sure, you can hope for that, but again, I don't think you should be that stupid and think the Lakers are just going to lose before that. So you're probably going to meet them sooner or later, and that's just going to be something you'll have to figure out when the Lakers are at a much better place than they are right now. Regarding this matchup, though, I think the Clippers are going to win. I listened to Bill Simmons, and they said, this is a perfect matchup for the Clippers because you got one guy, Luka, carrying the Mavericks, because KP is in and out of the lineup. He's basically injured all the time. You got nobody else on that Mavericks team. I mean, you got good rotation players, I guess, but that's about it. And you got basically Kawhi and Paul George to throw at Luka the entire game. So you got two guys to throw at your star point guard and the guy that basically carries your entire offense. Yeah, I don't think the Mavericks are going to have a good time in this series. So I would almost like to say a sweep, but I give them maybe one. So Clippers in 5, I could almost say it in the sweep, something like that. So.
Well, I mean, Luka, they did play last year in the first round, and it was 4-2. So, I could say 4-2.
Clippers team is a little bit different this year.
Oh, of course. And with Rondo, even Rondo could find a way to, disrupt that, what the Mavericks do, just with how little depth they have. So, yeah, I think, bro, what was I going to say? Jesus. Yeah, no, Clippers, I think in 5.
Okay.
Yeah, Clippers in 5.
We'll give them 5. Yeah, that's fair.
I'll give them 5. I'll give Jalen. All right. But getting to your point about the Clippers, the Lakers could just lose the first game.
They could.
And then it would be Lakers, Utah, and let's say the Lakers win that. Then you have to play them in the second. Like, then it's real karma, because you're like, the conference semifinals, woes, not just like this Clippers like iteration last year, but even beyond that, historically, the Clippers in the conference semifinals, like, this could be a full on karma. Weird how they're doing this. It just doesn't work out. Like, why? Like, those teams needed to lose. Like, they really needed to lose. You didn't need to lose, and now you're ruining their tank. Like, poor Houston and Oklahoma City, man.
Yeah, I just think it's pathetic for them to like just lose like that. It's just clear tanking. I don't know.
Like, as someone who's a bigger football fan than basketball fan, I mean, the concept of tanking, I get it. It feels like kind of rough on the players. I just don't know how they can buy into it. But then it's just seeing it like this, it's like, Jesus, like it kind of disgusts me.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess we're heading back to the east,
Yep.
flying over to Mississippi River, and we got. So let's see. We'll do 1-4. So we got Philly versus the Knicks, 76ers versus Knicks.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think Philly sweep or gentleman sweep. I'll just say sweep. They match up so well against them. Julius Randle's a good playmaker. He can pass. To who? Ben Simmons is gonna lock whoever's down. To who is he gonna pass to? And it's like Randle versus Embiid. I'll take Embiid all day. That's all it boils down to. Like, this is gonna be. I mean, Thibodeau can do something on defense. They try and do like a lot on defense. Because this will be a grimy series, I think, but I'll call it a sweep or gentleman sweep. Like, what are they going to do with it? Like, what are they going to, like, their offense, like the Knicks offense is just not going to function like at all. Like, at least as much as Thibodeau can try, like Embiid will get his. There, summed it all up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think I need to say too much more. I'll say that, the New York media won't be too happy that they lose to the Sixers, but it's whatever. I don't know. It's inevitable. I think we also overlook a little bit of Tobias Harris. Maybe he hasn't been like great, but he's been, he is a max player. He is supposed to be part of the so-called big three. It's not really a big three in Philly, but it's really just an Embiid show. But you got Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris there too as well. So you got that against a very hardworking, very well coached, all-out effort Knicks team that overachieved.
They're an overachieving team. The Knicks are an overachieving team,
and they should pat themselves on the back. They had a very successful season, but against the Sixers, I'm sorry, that's just sweep or gentleman sweep. I'd probably lean towards sweep at this point. Yeah.
I'm only saying gentleman sweep just because I think Thibodeau might be able to pull like one game. Just game might come up.
It's one of those again. It's like the coach and the assistant. So it's one of those kind of games because Doc Rivers was the coach when Thibodeau was the assistant in Boston back in the day, and so sometimes the assistant or the so-called apprentice does better, but most cases the coach, the guy who's up on top, usually does better. They figure it out. They usually have much better records than the assistant. So I think.
Well, yeah, of course, that makes sense. I mean, you bring that up, like, yeah. And Doc is a good coach. I really like Doc Rivers. So of course, but I feel like it's so harsh to like say a sweep for a team that's been quite solid this year.
True. It's true.
The Knicks. It just feels a little karma disrespecty.
That's fair.
But no, I think my head would say sweep, but I think something's gonna happen to where my gut's telling me gentlemen sweep.
Sure.
Which then that brings us to Brooklyn, Milwaukee.
Ooh.
I'm just smiling. Oh man, this is why I love this playoffs this year. Oh my gosh. Oof.
So yeah, I think as you alluded earlier to the podcast, a lot of people are chalking it up to be Lakers, Nets, and we put a lot of caution in that because there are teams in the East that, for one, they're built for deep playoff runs, but for two, they're somewhat naturally built to limit what Brooklyn can do and succeed. And so, the two teams I'm looking at is, obviously the Sixers, but the Bucks are the other team that can really limit what the Nets can do. And I think, when it looks like everything at full health and full power, right, you kind of have to assume that. but I think the Nets would probably still win, but it's like eking by. It's not like, oh, I'm just gonna go sweep or gentlemen sweep the Bucks. The Bucks are such a deep team. They're such a good team. I think they don't have the capability. The Nets don't have the capability to build a wall on Giannis. That's one of the big things, right? They don't have that really big length inside. So basically, Giannis is going to get what he wants inside. That's one stated fact. Can they defend? Yes, they can. Chris Middleton's a good defender. They got PJ Tucker, pretty good defender. You got Giannis, a great defender. Against the big three, of course, the big three, they're crazy.
You got Holiday, man.
Sorry, you got Drew Holiday again. So they're all like great defenders, right? All NBA defenders, and as much as you can, you can't neutralize the Brooklyn big three. You can limit them a lot. That makes life very difficult for how Brooklyn wants to operate forward and to actually, just like absolutely. There's no way they're going to destroy the Bucks. So what I'll say is, since Brooklyn has home court advantage, they'll win in 7, but it's going to be a very, very tight series the entire way through. I'm definitely sure of that one.
I agree, man. I also think it's going to be Nets in 7. It could even be Bucks in 7.
Well, if the Nets are, as injury prone as they were this season, it's going to be Bucks. That's all I'll say. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. So, I mean, as much as, here's the thing, there are many parallel. Although it's a big three and it's a bigger amalgamation, a bigger collection of talent than the Clippers. The Clippers, we've brought this up many times. Tried doing the same thing last year, and there's something to be said about you don't have a lot of stars. You don't have the stars. The stars don't. Bro, I can't grammar. The stars don't have a lot of minutes together, and the chemistry when it comes to playoff time, you can't just say now fix it, like figure it out.
Right.
Like it for Clippers, it was, self-inflicted reasons. For the Nets, it was just unfortunately fate, just injuries. But somewhere or another, chemistry is just not there. Right. So with that in mind, it gets kind of dicey, and coupled in with, like you said, I think the Bucks are built well. So, I mean, of course you can't, like you said, you can't completely neutralize them, but you can. I think Drew Holiday can make Kyrie Irving or James Harden, depending on who's, a little less than 100% efficient themselves. Like,
of course, yeah.
Giannis, Durant. I think if Durant's kind of hobbly, like not 100%, Giannis could work that out, right? And then you're basically asking, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup between one of the guards and Chris Middleton. So that's why, if I'm going by that, that's why I kind of favored Nets. But then, think about it, the Nets are just not good defensively. They just aren't.
Right.
Like, of course, the Nets are better offensively than the Bucks. Like that rudimentary, that dumbing it down that I just did doesn't even. I still think, with that in mind, the Nets could still do a lot on offense, but they just don't have a lot of defense. And again, this is why Drew Holiday is so damn important to this team. Like, they're just so much better now because like I think you've talked about this before too. Like, if Durant has to be their best defender, then Durant becomes less efficient on offense. It's like, right. Blake Griffin's their second best defender. Like there's a lot that's going on. And of course, like, Joe Harris Steve Nash has done a really good job at coach. The Bowen's been playing some solid time and been pretty efficient. Like, Joe Harris has been doing stuff, but like, for as much as we want to say like this big three is, this big three is so whatever, like, there's something said about beyond that. You have to rely on like people you're signing overseas, just for like these two-way contracts. Not even two-way. I don't even know how to put like these limited game time contracts. Like just you know, just fixing it on the fly.
Yeah, basically.
It's it's so that's the cause for concern. I just think as much as we love Middleton here, I just think if it's one-on-one Middleton versus one
Guards,
of
yeah.
those guards, yeah, they're gonna eat up Middleton, or at least they'll do better when you look at the matchup wise than Middleton will do against them. Like I just think as you know, and I mean we'll see. They've been talking with the Nets. This Nets crew has been talking that they can build defense back up on a fly. Like defense is more of mentality than technique, and these stars like really want to get into defense. They'll figure it out. And but then that leads into the chemistry problem. And the point is though, this is just a long way of saying we are lower on the Nets than I think most people are, and higher on the Bucks. But I think we still got Nets and 7.
I think totally agree with that. I think we're low on the Nets because we're smart also, because we're not like so blinded by how much talent they have, because we actually understand how teams are built and like how the Bucks are so good to match up against the Nets. And yeah, again, like you said about how KD, I did bring up that point about how KD, has to play so much defense. Like, yeah, he in this scenario, he have to play. KD would be, guarding probably Giannis some of the time. Yeah, that's not going to be fun. Maybe even like Drew Holiday, someone like that. So he's going to have to be moving all over the place. So that's going to be a problem. And on defense, like also Kyrie just can't defend. Like it's just his physical size and how he operates. It's just like he's just a defensive liability. As good as a point guard you can be, like I think like the only guy that's small that's like okay at defending, Chris Paul, you could probably put him up there because he's a good defender. But Kyrie's definitely not a good defender. So we'll put that out right there. James Harden hasn't been a good defender, but the Nets are definitely hoping he can be some kind of defender. Again,
I mean,
hoping is
he's
different.
shown glimpses that he can. He's shown
Right, exactly.
glimpses that he can. It's I
Right.
think we overrate how bad his defense is at times.
Sure. We'll have to see how he does over a series though. Like we haven't seen that part. And then finally, Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni with that 2 to part. They're not exactly known for defense. Like, let's just be honest there. So, the Nets, again, I think they'll win because they are so talented, but there are so many reasons to not pick them in this series. So that's why we have them in 7 in a very close series against the Bucks. There you go.
Great way of summarizing it. We'll still pick them, but there are a lot of reasons to not pick them.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. I think my AirPods died.
All right.
Doing this, raw, unedited. This is what it's like, man. All right. So flying
Yeah.
back over, I guess, the Appalachian Mountains, back over the Mississippi River, the Western Conference.
Yep.
So we got Utah. We got Utah and the Clippers. Woo!
You can start on this one.
Oh my gosh. Let me think this through in real time.
All right. If you need a moment, I can start. It's up to you.
No, it's fine. I'll figure this out. So I don't know what their head-to-head record's been this year. Boys, I think these two are kind of like made to match up against each other. But I think Gobert. I'm gonna pick the Jazz, and just because I think Karma's gonna buy. This is how Karma's gonna eat at the Clippers. It's not analytical whatsoever. It's just Karma's got to eat the Clippers. Like, I'm sorry, you can't just dodge teams like that. And as much as I love Rondo, right, as much as how talented the Clippers are, I think Gobert is in the interior. Like, they still don't have an answer. Like, they still haven't figured out like a good center, like a good way to have a good center presence. and they're going to get eaten up the same way they were eaten up by, I mean, Gobert is definitely a different player than Jokic. Like, it's not even fair to compare them, but like he's just another post presence that I don't think they're going to be able to take account. And then, I mean, as like you said, as much as the benches get shorter in the playoffs, I still think there's a but like the rotation that the Jazz have and how strong their 6 men are, and that their bench lineup versus the Clippers bench lineup. I mean, to me that kind of gives them a huge edge. And sure, like, yeah, Kawhi and Paul George can do their things because they can do their things, but you know, what's it? They're not as great defensively as they used to be. It might just be effort. It might just be they're phoning it until the postseason. But just clearly, these two aren't the same defensively as like we know them to be, and I think that's going to be a liability. Not liability. Papa pause. That's going to be like a factor that should be taken into account. And yeah, as much as I love Rondo, I just think I'll say Jazz in 7, just because, like, man, it's gonna be tight. I can't really. That's why I hesitate at the very beginning of this thing, man. But I'll say Jazz in 7, just because it's got to be karma somehow. It's got to be first take being like, what the hell is with the Clippers? Like, all of this stuff, and midnight reactions immediately after that game 7, just hitting on the Clippers like crazy. Like, I just think that's the karma for tanking this bet. Like, how you just unabashed, just let's lose to the Rockets and the Thunder. Like, Jesus. Yeah, this is just basketball karma more than analysis, but I gave what little analysis I could.
Perfect. I loved it. Jazz in 7. I'm taking that too. Okay. I think the number one reason for me is because the Clippers as a franchise, if you guys don't know this, have not made the Western Conference Finals ever in their franchise history. And I want that to continue as a Lakers fan. I'd love that to continue. Knock on wood that gets broken, but I want that to continue. That's my number one goal for picking Jazz there. Number 2, for all the reasons we talked earlier tonight about, how the Clippers have been, they've been bad in some ways, how they've tanked on purpose and been pathetic in that way, how Utah's a tough venue to play at. You have a lot of things that come into mix here. It's kind of a perfect storm. Utah's a tough venue to play at. Clippers are not as close as the Warriors, so they're just going to have to travel a little bit. I feel like, Utah's at full strength now. That's another thing. The Clippers, they're at full strength, but there are some kind of like issues also that, I feel like Kawhi's a little bit, he said he's playing through a little bit of foot soreness, a little bit of foot injury. That's going to linger through the playoffs. So yes, he's going to play, but would it be 100% like all the time? Maybe not. Here's when I really get like something that's real important. I heard the other day, and I will cite him because, I am a big fan of this man, even though he does have some controversial opinions sometimes. Colin Cowherd released a statistic. 5 worst teams in terms of clutch points in the last 2 minutes of NBA games this season. The 4 other teams are the Magic, the Cavs, the Rockets, and Timberwolves. So literal tanking teams. These are really, really bad teams. I can't state it enough. The number 5 team in this list, but they're the second worst actually. So they're the second worst team out of these 5 teams is the Los Angeles Clippers. And you just think about it, how talented the Clippers are. They're supposed to be, if I put a top 3, I'd probably put them top 3 most talented teams in the NBA. They have so much freaking talent. They cannot make a damn shot in the last 2 minutes. They literally cannot make a damn shot. And, having Rondo there, it's like playoff Rondo, who's going to elevate everybody in the playoffs. Well, if everybody else can't do shit, then what is playoff Rondo going to do? Playoff Rondo is going to get you his points. Playoff Rondo is going to play defense. Playoff Rondo is going to be good for himself, right? And it's going to help a little bit. But if the other players aren't going to do anything, that's going to mitigate his effect on the team. The Lakers really benefited from them because the Lakers knew how to feed off of what Rondo's been doing, and they really helped and they thrived off of that. If the Clippers can't capitalize on that, it doesn't mean anything for him. So that's what I'm looking at. Utah has Donovan Mitchell. They have Rudy Gobert. They have Bojan Bogdanovic. They got Joel Ingles. They got a very full lineup. Rudy Gobert's Defensive Player of the Year. Like he's been a very stable tower in the middle. I don't think Ivica Zubac stands any chance against him.
Exactly.
No chance against Gobert.
Exactly.
Gobert's going to eat him up inside. So that's one element. Donovan Mitchell's been playing extremely well. He came back from injury. He's fine. He's totally fine. He's 110%. They rested him more than they needed to just to make sure he's totally healthy. You're playing against the Clippers. The Clippers, they're like, not clutch. You got like problems with like playoff P. I'm sure that's going to surface again.
Pandemic P.
I really, really just think this is a matchup that the Clippers will not survive in. If they do, it's going to be 7 games. So that means that they barely freaking survive. But I am taking the Jazz at 7 because I want to see them lose. I really do.
It's funny because we've been kind of high on the Clippers. I think you have definitely been more high on them than me.
I respect them. I respect the hell out of them, but I do not like them. So
Yeah, of course. No. I meant like just for like what we believed was like the finals favorites or like
yeah, that's true.
we were picking, and it's the Clippers have been just quite bad in clutch situations, and I just think there's something fundamentally weird with that team that they wanted to tank to get out of the Lakers. Like, if they're as good as we think they, or especially you think they are, why would they do that? Like, they have a certain doubt. They doubt themselves in a way. Like who? You can't be a championship. Like Chris Paul had this quote. Like he went. Like Charles Barkley was like, "You thinking about like playoff season?" He was like, "I'm gonna cut you off right here. I've been the West all my career. You can't avoid anybody. You gotta like all that like that." So you have that mentality, and the Clippers are completely the opposite. That's the complete opposite of a championship mentality. It just is like trying to lose these games. And as much as we want to say on paper they should be like up there as finals contenders, like up there with the other finals contenders.
That should be on paper. Yeah.
That this week has told me all I needed all I needed.
Basically.
They're not. I if they win this series, they're gonna get like swept by the Lakers because they internally fear them.
Yeah.
They fear them.
I looked at that Knicks game. That sealed it for me. That was the one that sealed it for me. That how pathetic they were in the last 2 minutes. How they disintegrated against the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks play hard, right? And that just shows you that hard work, like the team without that much talent, they just play hard and they know how to execute, can beat you. Yeah, I mean, that kind of sealed it for me and how they're going to do. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I think Jazz and 7. That's good. Yeah, Gobert. I just think they won't have an answer for Gobert. Same way, in a different way, they didn't have an answer for Jokic. They won't have an answer for Gobert, but it's going to manifest in a different way.
Absolutely.
All right. So then that takes us to either, because we're completely had no clue what's going to happen in that first round, Lakers versus Portland or Lakers versus Nuggets. I think let's preview Laker Nuggets first.
Okay.
Because I'll talk about Lakers Nuggets first, I guess. Just repeat what happened last year in the conference finals, but without Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. And like, sure, as much as Michael Porter Jr. is really improved, and it could maybe be seen as a substitute for Jamal Murray. That's then what you Monte Morris like Campazzo I'm sorry. It sucks. Like it sucks to think about this as like with the Nuggets. And yes, Jokic is amazing, but like they kind of figure out a way to neutralize you. Like with when you have Anthony Davis and now with Andre Drummond,
Jeez.
they match up well with the Nuggets. And so I think that's why I was saying like I think you want the Nuggets to win just because it could be another 4-1 gentleman sweep.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with what you say. I think one of the deals about how Jokic is so good is that if you double team him, he's going to be, passing out to other guys. But the Lakers have length. Again, I'll emphasize that again. Again, it's going to be hard to pass out to people. But then again, when you have two giant guys in Drummond and Anthony Davis, and they don't necessarily need to be double teaming Jokic, but they're still going to be in the vicinity. They're going to be like really just like limiting how much he's going to be passing, his vision, all that. So it's going to be like making life pretty tough for Jokic down there for sure. And it has to be again on health and all that. But just looking at this year's Nuggets, Michael Porter Jr. Of course he's great, but he's no Jamal Murray, especially not bubble Jamal Murray. That was something else. That was MVP insane Jordan, like dare I say Jordan stuff like that. That shit was going on during the bubble with Jamal Murray. But no Jamal Murray, you got good Michael Porter and then great Jokic, but you got two greats in Anthony Davis and LeBron, if healthy, please. And then good in you could say great, going to great in Andre Drummond. So, I think the Lakers win in 5. Yeah, I give Denver 1. Give him 5. So
God, no. The blasphemy on Michael Jordan's name when you said, I mean, sure, he was great. He was great, but let's calm down a bit. Like,
I mean, okay, that bubble stuff though that's stuff of legend.
But I still think more of the fact that like how like Mitchell scored like 50 points and like I don't know, like that Mitchell Murray series, and Murray did well, but like Jokic was better than Murray in the play.
Okay, sure. But I mean, like coming down for 2-3-1 from down 3-1, like two series straight, like that's insane.
Of course, Murray was amazing, but like Jokic was better than Murray. So like if Jokic was supposed to be Jordan, is like not Jokic. If Murray was supposed to be Jordan, then like was Jokic just like? How do you get better than Jordan, man?
4 or 5 Pippen. I don't know. It's all good. I shouldn't have compared.
No. I'm just teasing you. No, but I got your point. Overall, I got your point.
Right.
That's why I'm poking a little fun at you. All right. But now let's say, what if it's Lakers Portland? I'm gonna let you start because this is what you predict, I guess, and I predict Lakers.
Yeah. So I think what Portland has, I don't think Portland's changed that much. Like that's what I'll say. They haven't changed too much. Replacing Whiteside with Cantor, like okay, that's not too much of a difference. I guess I would almost argue Whiteside was better than Cantor at this point. Whiteside was good last year on Portland. He was really good.
Yeah.
So
okay,
as a backup center,
Cantor can damn play starting center.
Sure.
He's so good.
Fair. But they're somewhat comparable. They're not like totally like two worlds apart. Like that's what I'm trying.
But I think we kidding ourselves if we didn't think Cantor this year was better than Whiteside last year.
Okay, that's fair. The big thing about Portland is that internally, there's one player that I think improved a lot, which would be CJ McCollum. I know like during the off season, the one thing he focused on was improving his 3-point shooting. And, he's been really good this year. Really took a leap, I would say, in terms of just like become a better player.
Yeah.
In general. And so that becomes a challenge when when facing like, the Lakers are facing the Trailblazers, because last year it's like, oh, gentlemen sweep, they had that 1 game scare when they had Dame go off, but that's about it. Because that's about it. Because CJ is like, oh, you're a good player, but you're kind of a role player. This year, he's a little bit more role than a role player. He's like approaching all-star level, maybe. Like he's like pretty good if he didn't get injured. That's why I'm saying that it'd be a bigger threat for the Lakers to play the Blazers and the Nuggets, but I still think they'd win in 6 games. So like I'd pick the Lakers in 6 games. I don't think it goes over 6. I just think that, CJ and Dame will make life a little tougher than a Jokic with maybe like a Mike Porter playing pretty good still.
Yeah, everything you said. I can't really think of anything to add other than like put some more respect on Cantor. But Nurkic, but to be fair, Nurkic is also he did get injured. He was doing well in a bubble, and then injury happened. But
yeah, that's true.
This is definitely a worse Nurkic, I feel like, than the bubble Nurkic we saw last year.
I agree. Worse Nurkic, sure.
So that's something you said. But you're right. McCollum got better, much better.
He did.
Norman Powell's there. I think Norman Powell adds something to that team. And with all that in mind, and I think the Lakers they're not as 100% as they were, of course, last year. With all that in mind, though, I agree. I think it's Lakers in 6. Yeah,
that's fair.
I don't have any much more to add. You did a good job with that. All right, so we got. Now we're gonna go all the way back. We're traveling down. Let's see where we were. I guess Lakers. So traveling down I-5 up to I-80. Then we're gonna drive all the way from I-80 all the way down to New Jersey, all the way down to Philadelphia, man. Cross country, going straight back to the Eastern Conference.
Right.
So we got the Sixers versus either the Nets or the Bucks.
Okay.
I will say this. I think just off the bat, I guess it's because it's a conference finals, you're building suspense to this, but I'll tell you this. I think it'll be Sixers. Whoever it is.
You'd be Sixers winning.
Yeah.
Like
I think here's why.
Yeah, sure.
There's that series, that Milwaukee Brooklyn series is going to be hella fun. It's going to be grueling for whoever wins it. They're going to be exhausted. Philly's going to come off a sweep. Like, then you got Doc Rivers and this feist, the 76ers crew that really just wants it, damn it. And then Brooklyn, let's say it's against Brooklyn, Steve Nash, and then a team that hasn't really built up chemistry. Let's do this. Similar to what we did with
the Lakers one.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that here.
Okay.
So let's say it's Philly versus Brooklyn. All right. They got no fucking answer for Embiid.
No answer.
No answer, like at all. Like we thought, if of course Giannis plays differently, but they got no answer for Embiid. Embiid's playing like his ceiling's like 2000 Shaq this year, the way he's been playing. Like, my God. And I actually think like Ben Simmons is, no offense to Drew Holiday and Giannis and them, but like Ben Simmons and Tybalt is like, they're playing so well defensively. They could actually have a shot at neutralizing those guards. So you're asking limping Kevin Durant versus who at the rim is going to get challenged by Embiid versus an Embiid who's going to have nobody that guards him. Embiid's going to go off. I think if in that case, I think the Sixers would win in what's it called? The Sixers would win in 6 or 7.
Fair. Okay.
Any thoughts on that? If it's Sixers Nets.
I'm gonna say Sixers in 6. If they play the Nets,
Wow.
because if you're really breaking it down, and you broke it down pretty good, but if you're really breaking it down, 5-0 on Kyrie, neutralized. Simmons against Harden. Again, Simmons, people like, I guess it's kind of flying underrated how good of a defensive player he is. But like, if you watch First Take, Max Kellerman always said Simmons is probably the best defensive player in the league right now. So, I mean, as good as Harden is, he's amazing, but the best defensive player in the league against Harden is probably going to neutralize him as close as possible, basically. KD against Joel Embiid. That's basically like your answer there. Because the Nets don't have that good of a defensive presence, KD has to play defense on Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid doesn't always have to play defense on Kevin Durant. That doesn't need to be happening because, the Sixers have a pretty good defensive team. They have a really good defensive team, in fact. So that helps, number one. And number two, Embiid's going to eat inside. He's just going to absolutely destroy anybody near the rim. And even Kevin Durant, as good as a defender he is, one shouldn't be defending like right next to him near the rim because he's going to get destroyed. And number two, nobody can defend against Embiid right now. He's just impossible. So, yeah, looking at that, everything cancels out. Sixers win in 6 games. That's what I'm choosing right now.
So, yeah, exactly. And also, this is KD, who's not 100%. KD, who, like you've talked about before, you brought it up, how like he needs to defend not the best player, but second best player so that he can get back on offense and be a whole 100%. But he's going to be worn out by that Milwaukee series if the Nets advance. He's going to be worn out by that Milwaukee series. That, like, my God, like, what's going to go on? How is it going to work out? And also, like, we haven't even mentioned Danny Green and Seth Curry and Tobias Harris. How are the Nets going to defend these guys?
They're not. That's the answer.
How? Like, I just mentioned Embiid. Now you got these guys.
The one name I would maybe say that the Nets are, it's like kind of a underrated guy, but I know him a little better because he was on the Clippers last year. Landry Shamet. Yeah. I don't like that man, but he is actually a very good player because he's a hustle player and he's very feisty. So good pickup for Nets, and I think he'll be okay, but he's limited in what he can do. Like, I mean, as good as a player you are, you're a hard worker, right? But you're not like all-star level talent. So I think he'll be, that's someone that you can say like, okay, Landry Shamet can make some kind of impact, but he's not going to be like amazing. It's not going to tip the scale anywhere. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, Landry Shamet. I mean, they got Jeff Green, Landry Shamet. We can start naming names. I mean, and then of course the Nets are great offensively, and
right.
But the Sixers, they're so good defensively. I think they'll win in 6 or 7, like you said, we've been saying.
Right.
Now, if it's Milwaukee, this is not why I said this is less analytical on why I said the Sixers would win and more on Milwaukee's going to come from a grueling series as Doc Rivers versus Budenholzer. And I just straight up, that's why. But if we were to break it down, do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
I can go first, like real quick, but it's not going to take too long for me.
All right.
I don't have too many points to make for this. I think I agree with you. The only reason why I'd pick the Sixers for 2 reasons, but one of the reasons mainly was because, Milwaukee's going to come out with a grueling matchup against the Nets. It's just going to be facts, basically. I don't see any other way it's going to be that series going to play out. It's going to be really, really tough for sure.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, I think Philly can somewhat build a wall against Giannis, and then somehow we can really limit his impact because Embiid is probably the one guy that you want to go against Giannis because just match size-wise, it's great matchup, right? So here's a caveat is that actually Milwaukee swept the regular season series against Philly. So that's an interesting point. But, when you have those two competing factors and the Milwaukee's track record in the playoffs, like, unfortunately, I have to bring that up in some way still. I think my prediction would be that the Sixers would actually have to win in 7. They'd have to take another game over the Nets. I like the Bucks better than the Nets in the Sixers matchup. So that's my point.
I agree with you on the. I like the Bucks better than the Nets in the Sixers matchup. They have a better shot. I also think let's not even put in the Bucks playoff thing aside. Put it aside.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, they've won it. They've swept the Sixers. But I think you come out of that growing matchup if you're able to build a wall around Giannis, and then let's say you have Tybal, like just having an extra defender on top of that wall, can neutralize like one of the like Middleton or Holiday, and so that really hinders what Milwaukee could do versus like the series before when we were talking about Brooklyn versus Milwaukee. If you can't build that wall, like you're screwed. So I think it comes down to that too, and the sweep definitely kind of makes it interesting. I'm a little less confident in the Sixers, but I still lean the Sixers. But if it's the Nets, I'll they're going to be underdogs, but I think they'll win it.
I think Sixers having home court is very important as well.
Exactly.
I think we've said before, Philly fans are very passionate, and
they get the 1 seed.
They will let these guys know, especially Brooklyn. They will let them know they're in their house. Like they will let them know for sure.
Also, absolutely. Is it weird? I think it's been kind of underrated how the fact like the Sixers have the 1 seed now. Like the process in a way like worked.
Oh yeah.
Like
whoa. Okay.
Like
until a championship is reached, though, I don't think that's just.
I get that. I understand that, but they have the 1 seed now. Like the Sixers.
Yeah.
What if you stand back and think about this? How they got like, I don't know. It's just wild. But Embiid's finally really figured it out.
Might have just been Doc Rivers,
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah,
Doc Rivers and Morey and all that. So I think so on the West. So we're going to Utah, right? I don't know the interstate highways to get this. I think you could just go 80. You could just go back on I-80 and go all the way down. I think Salt Lake hits there. It definitely goes through Nevada, so it could go through Utah. All right. Going back in the Western Conference. We got the Jazz. We got the Lakers. I am not sure about this, so I'm gonna deflect and have you talk first.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I don't, totally have my, my inner like Lakers fan come out too much, because like, I'm trying to make sure that it's not like being stupid and like making like a very rushed decision to say the Lakers are gonna just win this. But like upon further inspection, I'm still thinking, again, if the Lakers are at this point, what I'm expecting from the Lakers, one, they're healthy because they've had enough rounds to like, play out, to stretch out, to like really get themselves back in shape so they're healthy. They have pretty good chemistry, like relatively good chemistry. Maybe not like bubble last year, but pretty good chemistry. If those 2 points are met, which I don't think is too tough of a hurdle to cover, I think the Lakers can win in 6. That's what I'm looking at. Lakers win in 6. Because when those points are satisfied, the Lakers have more talent on the court over the Jazz, period. That I agree with. I think without any doubt there. As much as I love the Jazz, I think the Lakers, one with Gobert, you have 2 twin towers in Drummond and Anthony Davis. That's called the best way to neutralize Rudy Gobert. You have Donovan Mitchell. Well, you can throw Schroeder at him. You can throw LeBron James at him. You can throw a bunch of guys at Dennis Schroeder. You can throw Taylor Horton Tucker if you want to even. So that kind of like limits there. But the Lakers have a lot of pieces that are interchangeable. The Lakers are quite lengthy, as I say again. And they can also they have a very good, they have a great offense as well. Like how by this point they should be very well facilitating between LeBron, facilitating red of the offense, got Anthony Davis, Andre Drummond, eat up, get theirs against Gobert. So basically, it just like makes sense. They have more talent on the court. Utah is a tough place to play, but again, at this point, I think Staples going to be a pretty tough place to play as well. So I think Lakers win 6 at Staples. So
It's crazy how you have a 7 seed in the finals. It was wild.
what were the Heat last year? They were 5 seed, right?
Yeah, they're Heat.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like, I don't know. It's just funny. That's the bubble. It's a little different.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
A 7 seed, not even in the playoffs initially when you think about the Lakers. No, but I agree with you. I think you talking made me more confident to say it because I like the Jazz a lot. I think that whole chemistry and Quinn Snyder, what they've done, like it's a good solid team. Like the way they just shoot a lot of threes, but like their defense is very strong. Like it's just all works out. But I think it's a different beast when LeBron. I guess the caveat is, of course, LeBron James is like by this point they'll have figured it out. They'll have won these series and figured it out. This offense, LeBron just getting back into his groove and all that. Because without that, like their offense is quite trash without LeBron James. Like
very bad. Yeah.
So LeBron James should be healthy, like and playing.
Yeah, hopefully.
With that in mind, you have, like you said, Twin Towers are best way to neutralize Gobert. Your bench is shortened at some point, and I don't know, Mitchell. Yes, he can score 50 points in the playoffs, but it's LeBron James. It's a different beast, and I think they're just more talented. I think the Jazz could win a couple of games, the same way the Heat won a couple of games in the finals,
right,
last year. So the same way, it's going to be a similar type vibe. I get from the series, with that final. So, but I think, yeah, Lakers in 6 is actually perfect. I think it's Lakers in 6.
Sounds good. Perfect.
So that leads us, I guess, because Philly has a home court advantage. Just damn it, we got to go back across the Mississippi again. Those mountains, all the way back. We couldn't stay on the West Coast, so got to cross those Appalachian Mountains too. So we're getting to the finals.
Yep.
We got the 76ers and the Lakers.
Wow.
This is going to be fun. I love it. Defense, damn it. I love it. The 2 best defenses. It works out too, because like if you have a bad, piss poor defense, you cannot make it to the NBA finals. Like it's a stat. If you have a bottom half defense, you cannot make it to the NBA finals. Yeah. And yeah, we got 2 best defenses in the National Basketball Association. And I don't know, I'm excited for it. Danny Green, semi-revenge game. Dwight Howard revenge game.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It should be quite interesting. All right, give me your thoughts, Lakers fan. Give me your thoughts. Is this when you just break all the Celtics fans' hearts and take that record? Is this when it happens?
Okay, so I think this is what I'll say. I don't necessarily believe in this, but I'm just gonna do this because I feel like it's the right thing to do. For me to as a Lakers fan, remain somewhat humble. I'm gonna pick the Sixers, but in my heart, I want the Lakers to win. So, I mean, I had in my heart, I know like the Lakers have that winning and they have the advantage there. But I'm gonna pick the Sixers on this podcast because I don't want to jinx my Lakers. That's what I'm doing. So, that's what I'm doing here. I'm gonna pick the Sixers in 7 because just to like put it out there.
Okay.
All right. All being said though, the Sixers are a pretty tough matchup for the Lakers because as you've seen, I think this year when they played each other, it was pretty tough. Like, and that was what LeBron on the floor playing with them, and it was just still a very tough matchup because of how well the Sixers defend, because of Joel Embiid being amazing again. The only difference in that equation now is you have Andre Drummond added to the Lakers, and that remains to be seen how well he can do against Joel Embiid. I think that is the ultimate test. Like, I think even more than Giannis. So would a Giannis versus Twin Towers scenario be more impressive, or would Joel Embiid versus Twin Towers? And I would say Joel Embiid because, he's playing MVP season. He's been playing. He's just unstoppable.
2000 Shaq light. Yeah.
2000 Shaq's like, right? Like, if you're thinking of a guy in the post, that would be Embiid. And so, yeah, this would be the toughest assignment of them all for Anthony Davis and Andre Drummond to accomplish. But we'll see how that goes. Number one, LeBron. I think LeBron's one of those guys. Like, you could say, like, you can't ever fully neutralize him, but you can get pretty close to limiting him. And so Sixers have like that kind of rotation of players they can throw at LeBron. That's the ultimate what you want. You can have Ben Simmons, of course. That's one player. You can have Tybal in some cases. I don't know exactly how good like Tobias Harris is like in totality in defense, but he's not a bad defender at all. So he can definitely be, he's another body that's a lengthy guy that can somewhat limit and tire out LeBron in that case, right? And then I think ultimately it's just like looking at how Philly has home court advantage in the finals because they're the overall 1 seed, and how the Lakers. I just feel like there's like more questions I have for the Lakers in some ways than the Sixers, and it's going to be a close series again. We pick them in 7, but in the sake of not jinxing my Lakers and respecting the Sixers, I picked the Sixers in 7 games. And I wouldn't be mad if they actually won 7 games. But, yeah, that's all I'll say.
This is going to be a great series, man. I don't even know which way I lean. Maybe by the time I finish whatever I'm going to say, I'll be able to pick a winner.
Okay.
It's whew. Because when you think about it on one side, these Sixers are built in a way. I mean, they have Danny Green, which kind of helps you bring to this. Like, they're kind of built like those first teams that are just so good defensively.
Yeah.
You're wondering if Ben Simmons can like pull a Kawhi Leonard and just shut down LeBron.
It's possible. It's possible.
You just have Embiid. I mean, Ben Simmons isn't great offensively. We know this, but you have Embiid coupled with Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Seth Curry. I mean, Dwight Howard plays solid. He's solid. I mean, he's on that team now, and he kind of knows how the Lakers operate too. So in a way, that helps too. And so all of that tells you, like, oh my gosh, like the Sixers actually have a shot. Like they're defensively able to like actually match up with these LeBron, the LeBron Lakers offense. But it's still the Lakers. It's still LeBron. It's still LeBron and AD. Like, it's still LeBron, AD, and Drummond. Like, as much as you can say that in your head, your gut will be like, you can't just, do that to them. And at some point, it might just be they're coming off of injuries. It's rough, they're coming off of injuries, that ankle, aggravating that ankle as he's had recently. Like, they'll have played so many games to get here. Well, I shouldn't say so many, like maybe so many. They'll have played more games for sure than I think the Sixers will have by this point. I don't know how they'll have held up So I also lean, I guess, now Lakers in 7. No, my bad. Sixers in 7. Uh,
Yeah. All right.
man, bunch of Freudian slips here today. But uh, yeah, I think Sixers can get it done. Sixers in 7. I think Doc Rivers, Doc Rivers that, well, it's a different, has had plans for how to, in a way, kind of work with, work against LeBron. Even though those Celtics teams never really, not never, but they've had success against LeBron, at least more than other teams have had.
Yep.
At least bringing them to game 7s and all that jazz. But nonetheless, this is going to be, it's going to be great. I can see the Lakers leading this easily too. I could just be like, what am I talking about? LeBron is amazing. LeBron's the second best player of all time. Like, what am I doing here? Outing this man. But I mean, if Ben Simmons is like the way he's been playing this year defensively, like, my God, like if they just put him on LeBron and LeBron is like kind of shaky, like relative to what he usually is, then Anthony Davis hasn't been full on his prime as of late.
Correct.
Yeah. So I can just see there's a path for the Sixers to win this. I think it's 50-50, but if you take Sixers and 7, I'll take Sixers and 7. So we can get a consensus.
So the only pain I have with the Sixers winning, so I'm fine with Dwight Howard winning. I mean, that might be surprising for some Lakers fans because I know he had very bad relationship with Kobe when he was with the Lakers. But I think Dwight Howard's a good guy, like overall, I believe. And I think he's one of the best players that we forget about because he was so good in Orlando. If you remember, he single-handedly basically took him to the finals in 2009. And he just like kind of fell off the face of the earth after he left the Magic and just became a journeyman. But I think he deserves like another championship. I think that's fine. One of the pain would be Danny Green winning another championship because let me be honest. Okay, it somewhat has to do with number one that he's a Tar Heel, so that automatically makes me not like him. But number two, when he was on the Lakers last year, that man could not make shit. And like, I apologize, but that man could not make shit for the Lakers. He did nothing. He had negative value for the Lakers. Like, I remember his jersey saying, "How many more?" That was his slogan. And all of us Lakers fans are saying, "How many more threes can you miss? Like, how many more can you how many more can you bury our team into, basically?" And so for him to win another championship, like, and especially against us, like, that would be pretty painful. But it's okay. We'll see what happens.
I mean, he in a way, he's kind of like discount Robert Horry of our generation.
Well, he was trash, Robert Horry, last year. Let's say that.
I know, but he's just on these teams, man. He's on the Spurs, on the Raptors, on the Lakers, on the Sixers. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Seth Curry could get a ring. Seth could stand up to his brother and be like, "Look, I got a ring too."
That's true.
Yeah, that's that Duke difference. It's that Duke difference. Right?
That Duke difference.
So, yeah, no, but I think Simmons, if Simmons and Ty, like they're just so good defensively. You just kind of have to be like, whoa,
right?
Could they do something with LeBron, and then could they figure out an offense like this offense to where they have enough talent on the Sixers that I genuinely think they could pull a 2014 Spurs.
Definitely possible.
In a way.
Yeah.
Again, this is maybe rudimentary basic analysis when you think about that, but it could be 2014 Spurs again.
Yeah. I think, in short, to our audience, if you haven't watched a lot of NBA basketball, and like even if you aren't really an NBA fan, I highly recommend you watch this playoffs this year. Because I think this year, more than any other year, the door is wide open for any team, for many scenarios to unfold. And so this is the one season that you would like to watch as a fan because so many possibilities are possible, so many exciting slates, so many exciting matchups and series. It's definitely worth your time watching these NBA playoffs every single minute. I definitely think about that. So
Like this can think about it. For as much as we have the Lakers getting this, this could all change if the Lakers lose that first game against the
Yeah.
Warriors. This
Yep.
all goes back to that first game.
Yep.
This could change if the Lakers lose that game. Then they immediately have to play the Jazz. So they don't match up well with like at the very onset if LeBron isn't 100% and still reeling. And the Jazz could figure out something there, right? Or you could have, let's say, Milwaukee wins and then Milwaukee beats the Sixers. I mean, Milwaukee beats the Nets and then beats the Sixers because that could happen. Oh my gosh, like what? A whole different final. Like, you know, you can go on and on. These whole play-ins also, it just shapes how the matchups for these higher seeded teams and then affects them later on in the playoffs. And then you're like, you know, it just changes a lot. I mean, if Denver wins or Portland wins, it's a better matchup for another team or not, even though it's like a 50-50 toss-up that we have. So yes,
Right.
of course, I agree. It's wide open. You can't just, it's not, you know, people might talk you into, oh, it's going to be Lakers Nets. It's going to be Lakers Nets. No, this isn't like these Cavs Warriors series that we're accustomed to. Cavs Warriors years. This is completely different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that in mind, you got our picks from us. We got the Sixers over the Lakers in 7. And we'll see you soon, man. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll talk to each other soon. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this depends on when's a good time for us, and maybe it's after playing games. Maybe it's after we get a good weekend in. And we kind of see what's happening in the NBA. We'll, of course, we'll talk about all that.
Absolutely. All right. Good night, everyone.